Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to another quick and easy budget-friendly DIY video. Today I'm working on some summer DIYs. I guess that's up for interpretation, but you know, change your patterns, colors, images to suit your liking. But I am crafting my stash using things I have on hand, Dollar Tree, Dollar General, clearance items. We're crafting on a budget. Let's get started. For this first DIY, it's just a piece of wood. As you can see, I previously stenciled the other side of it for my tiered tray, and I thought, why not make a reversible sign, a double-sided sign? So that's what we're doing, but just a scrap piece of wood. Mine was kind of like lightly painted white, which worked perfectly for this, and I just gave it a good coat of Mod Podge, and then I pulled a couple of napkins out of my stash, and we're going to do the iron-on method. For the Mod Podge, you let the Mod Podge dry. You apply your material, whether it's a napkin or a scrapbook piece of paper, and then place a piece of parchment paper and an iron with no steam. I am using a mini heat press, but you can use your household iron. Just make sure there's no steam in it. And I am slowly and carefully ironing that on. Not like super slowly, but make sure you don't move the piece that you're ironing on. And this works great, especially for thin pieces like napkins that tend to wrinkle. There's absolutely no wrinkles in this. And then I'm using a nail file to gently, I have this quite a bit sped up, but gently sand away. Just make sure you're sanding down instead of up because you don't want to pull it up. And we're going to get rid of any of the excess napkin or material, whatever you're using. You don't have to use napkin. You can use tissue paper, whatever. And I had a little bit of an overlap, which if you don't like that look, then don't do that. But I just did a little bit of Mod Podge underneath it to seal it down, used my heat gun to dry that, and then went over it one more time with the iron. Probably not necessary, but I like to do that after I do the sanding, just in case anything did lift up at all. I just like to make sure that it's down nice and tightly. Is that the appropriate adjective? I don't know, maybe not. I have these stickers. These are from, well, they're from my stash. I'm thinking they're probably from Hobby Lobby because I tend to pick them up there on clearance. And I am trying to use my stickers, but a lot of times you end up with not the right letters that you need. So I'm going to show you how I'm making myself an H. I am going to cut apart a couple of X's. I figured the X wouldn't be as likely to be used by me. And I cut it down. I looked at what the original, like the outline of the original capital H looked like because I wanted it to have the similar like flair that these letters have. They're a little bit italicized and they've got some little swoopies on them. And I'm using a little hook tool. This is like a Dollar Tree version of a Cricut tool to help place the stickers down. It is so handy for crafting, and I don't even have a Cricut. Also, when placing down stickers, I tend to just push down the edge like lightly until they're in place. Now, a good idea would have been to Mod Podge this first because then lifting up the letters and moving it would be less likely to tear the napkin, but it all worked out. For our second word, I'm using these stickers that are from the Dollar Tree, and I actually did, these are pretty fragile. They have them in black, red, and green, I think is what I've seen, but here you can see I broke my S, and it was my last S, but I was like, nope, I'm going to piece it together. And these are hard to film because my head, I have to get really close to like, you know, see it properly. And then it gets out of focus. And as you saw, I also use a pair of tweezers. That helps really, really well for placing things down. And then we're going to give this a good coat of Mod Podge. Not too thick. I didn't want the napkin to start wrinkling again, but, or wrinkling, I shouldn't say again. But gave that a good coat. And that is it for this sign. Let me know what you think. I decided to mix in some patriotic with my summer DIYs because, well, it's a popular summer decor style and theme. I'm using some calendar pages. I've had these calendars in my stash forever. They're from the Dollar Tree. I think this was 2021's maybe. But I have many times just taken the whole page, glued them onto their Dollar Tree always has these square signs that are the same exact size as the calendar page. But I wanted to do something different. And I really like this image. So I'm sorry to Alaska and Hawaii. You did get cut out. It's nothing personal. It's just, this is what worked for my DIY. So I am cutting this out. I am always overwhelmed by the thought of this detailed cutting. My friend Favi at Arrows DIY Check out her channel if you don't know it already. She always does the detailed cutting, and I am like overwhelmed by it. Like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I have the patience for that. But it's really not that bad, and I'm so pleased with how it came out. So I didn't need to use the whole image on my calendar page, but I've had these calendars in my stash for a while, and I was like, it is time to use them or get rid of them. And I loved this image. Look how that came out. Okay, I was pleased. So I'm just using a white canvas. Any sign would do. And I'm giving this a good coat of Mod Podge. And then, because sometimes I stop and start my crafting just when it fits into my schedule, I just picked off a clump of Mod Podge and stuck it on my hand. And I'm placing on some paint cans, paint bottles to raise it up off the table. I forgot what I was planning to do. So we're going to iron this on using the iron-on method. Let the Mod Podge dry, place the item down, parchment paper, iron without steam. This is great, but it's not what I intended to do. So my intention was to iron on this piece of scrapbook paper and then put the image on top of it, but I totally forgot until I was done. So I was like, all right, it came out beautiful. It was totally smooth. Everything was great, but I was like, I need to add more detail to this because I was planning on that paper being the detail. So that's all right. Plan B works. So I am just using my ruler and writing some shiplap lines with my pencil, just avoiding the image itself. This did work, although canvas does have that texture, so it's a little bit different, but you really can't tell from here. Draw the lines, smudge them with your finger, and you get little faux shiplap. And then I wanted to add some of that wood color. So I'm using some antique wax, very little on my brush, as you can see here. I didn't mind if some of it got across the calendar image as well, but I mainly wanted the sides. So I went around it, and I just kind of kept going horizontal with my brush strokes so that it, I don't know, kind of looked more like wood grain. It doesn't really, but I do like how it came out. I did also highlight close to the image because I didn't want there to be like any white around the perimeter of it. Hopefully I'm describing it well. These pieces were from Hobby Lobby. It just said decoration. It wasn't even in the DIY stuff. It shows them as like decorations for your table setting. But it was, I think it said $2.99 for 6 of them, plus it's 40% off. Great little find. So I hot glued fireworks onto here. And I'm using this little pick tool from the Dollar Tree to pick out any hot glue that oozes out. Careful to not, tear the paper, but you get it while the glue is still a little bit warm. And I just love this little pick tool. But that is it for this little sign. I did paint over, the shiplap lines a little bit, but it still just gave that undertone of a look. So I was pleased how it came out, even though it's not how I intended to do it. For our next DIY, I have this little sign that I previously DIY'd. It was honestly probably from Dollar General, because usually their signs are cheaper. You can often find them for $1, but thrift store, Dollar Tree, Hobby Lobby clearance, whatever, just a sign. And I'm going to paint that with some white. I think I'm still using white chalk paint. Mine is almost gone, but I'm able to dip to the bottom and get it. And we're just going to give that a good coat. I'm just painting everything for this. Depending on what it is to begin with, it depends on what you have to do. If it's just a plain wood sign, you're not necessarily going to have to do that. Sometimes craft stores have just like wood blanks. But we are going to give this now a coat of Mod Podge and let it dry. I'm doing a lot of Mod Podging in this video. That was not an intentional theme when I started these, but here it is. So I've got a napkin, and if I had not mentioned this in the first one, you do want to make sure you tear out the other plies of the napkin so that you're only Mod Podging down the top layer with the image. And then we're going to go again with our parchment paper and an iron and iron that on. Now this sign is pretty simple. The image on the napkin was so pretty and had lots of detail that I didn't want to add anything to it. I thought about adding some things, and I was like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to take away from it at all. So I'm just trimming off the excess, going in with some sandpaper, nail file was what I did last time, whatever you got. And this comes off so easily. Just be careful to not pull up at the paper. And yeah, we're going to just sand down, sand away. If you are enjoying this video, please give it a thumbs up. That helps me out a ton. And thank you to all of my subscribers and those who watch my video. I couldn't obviously do this without you. And I have recently hit 5,000 subscribers. So thank you so very much. I appreciate all of your support. By the way, you might as well subscribe if you're also giving this video a thumbs up so that you can see, my future videos. So I did want to add just a little bit of detail, and so I decided to paint the perimeter. I'm just using a pale yellow paint that's in my stash. I am determined to work through what I've got. I've got paints and glues that I've been using, but they're not all finished, and I don't want them to get chunky and all of that before I can use them up. So I'm really trying to just choose from what I've got, buying stuff only when needed, or like bases, like blanks I'll buy. But I thought this was a really nice detail and a cute little sign for a tiered tray, and that's how it came out. A purple accent to match one of those flowers would also be pretty on the edge, but you can find all sorts of beautiful napkins and just have fun with them. So this little sign, as you can see, was only $1. I actually think I got it for less than that. But if you recognize that tag, that is from Dollar General. And it did come with a farm animal on the front, which I have previously taken off and done a project with. So I just had this blank sign here. And we're going to go in with some white paint. I wasn't careful at first and got it on the chicken wire, so I was going in with a baby wipe to get that off before it dried. And I'm doing a good coat, but not a perfect coat. This way I didn't have to distress it. I wanted some of that brown to peek through. I did keep the brush strokes all going in the same direction. I just think that looks nice. But do it according to your preferences. And then I have some wood stars. I think these are from Hobby Lobby. They come in a pack with multiple sizes, and we're going to give one of these a coat of white paint, and then these two smaller ones a coat of blue. This is Ocean by Waverly. I've really enjoyed that for my patriotic decor. And the blue ones only needed one coat. I did go ahead and do a second coat of white on the big one. I don't know if I needed to, but it dried so quickly. I was pretty much, by the time I was done with the blue ones, I just went back in and did a second coat on the white star. So once that was dry, I was going to paint on some red lines, and I have this tape. It's like washi tape, but it's not called that because it's from Dollar Tree. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, I actually have some red tape. So I didn't show you much of this because my head kept getting in the way. I'm just using one as a spacer. But instead of putting this down to paint, I was like, this is just going to be my red stripes. So I just smoothed them out to make sure that they were down nice and solid. And then I'm just using these little scissors from the Dollar Tree to trim them off. I love these scissors. They're precision scissors from the Crafter Square, and they come in so super handy when crafting. So I'm just going to trim them up. You can see I'm trying to get like really, really close. I didn't want them going over the edge. So I just took my time, but it wasn't like it was hard. And then we're going to just glue these on here to make a little sign. But the larger star wasn't going to have a lot of contact, just a little bit on 3 of the points. So I took a popsicle stick and cut it down. I ended up cutting down 2 pieces, and I just hot glued them together. Now, hot glue on the wire and isn't going to be the most, it'll hold for a while. But if you wanted to heat it up with a heat gun, you could take it off. But as long as you're not putting this outside in the sun, you should be fine. So I hot glued the popsicle sticks together, then to the back of the star. Then we're going to put some hot glue on the popsicle stick and the little points that are going to make contact, and press that down. And I'm once again going in with my little tool to make sure I get any excess off. I'm doing this on a silicone mat, so I wasn't worried about the hot glue seeping through to the mat, but just make sure you protect your surface, of course. And then the blue ones I was putting right on the chicken wire, so I'm just going to put a good amount on. Hold that down really good till it kind of dries. I pulled it up before it was fully dry so that I could get the hot glue off of it. And I just thought this was a really sweet and simple sign. I did decide to flip it over and put some extra, kind of like went overkill, but just so that there was hot glue on the other side of the chicken wire. And I did that on all 3 stars wherever there was contact, just to make sure it held really good. And then because I like my items a little bit more rustic, as you can see, I decided to go in with some antique wax by Waverly and just a chippy brush and just went over the whole thing, the frame, all of the stars, all of it. So yeah, I thought that was a nice little touch. And that's how this one came out. Let me know what you think. For another summer DIY, I'm pulling out an old fall sign. This is from Dollar Tree, and I've literally had this for years. It was for some reason stored in a different spot than the rest of my crafting stuff, so it kind of got forgotten about. And this one was stapled on, but I'm not going to be, well, I'm going to be using the back side, and I'm not going to put string on it, but you can add something to hang it with at the end if you want. But I'm just adding in a little bit of lightweight spackling to fill in those holes, letting that dry, and then giving that a good sanding. We are doing another patriotic DIY because I just was still in the mood for it. I like it for all summer. So we're giving this, once again, kind of a rough coat, but a good coat of white paint because I wanted the edges to be a little bit more rustic. I did make sure that the brush strokes went all the way across so it didn't look too choppy while still letting that the edges kind of shine through. You can also rough it up with some sandpaper if you want, or do a full coat if that's not your desired look. But it's my desired look, and I'm also going in with some more shiplap lines. So using my ruler and a pencil, and we're just going to draw our lines and then smudge them all with my finger. I really like how this effect looks, and you should do what you like. I have these stickers from Hobby Lobby. I got a great deal. They were $2 something, originally like $10.99. So I've had these for a while, and they were red, and I was like, well, I might as well use some pretty red stickers, and I decided to put established 1776. And as you can see, once again, I'm just kind of attaching the bottom edge so that I can pick them up and move them. I mean, that's still going to depend on the surface you're using, but it does make it easier to move them if you need to. And then I flatten them all out. Now we're going in with another calendar page. This is a separate calendar from my stash that I've had for a long time. So I am going to cut out the truck, but I did leave some of those perimeters intact with the stars and stripes because I thought, oh, this could be used for another DIY in the future. So I am going to fussy cut around this. Now, right here, there's like a rear or a side mirror, and I was debating leaving it on, and I was like, I'm going to cut it off. It's going to look fine without it, and I just didn't want to deal with something that potentially fragile. But here it is, how it came out, all trimmed up and cut out. And I was debating on Mod Podging this first and then letting it dry and then doing the iron-on method versus putting the Mod Podge on the surface itself. But then this was like seriously curling up on me instantly. So I just went with it. But I like to show you that because, sometimes you try things and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm placing this on my sign and flattening it out. And then I did go in with the parchment paper to iron it because I probably should have waited for it to dry, but I don't know. This may have not been the best route to take, but the calendar pages are thin, so they will wrinkle very, very easily. And, listen, you try, and sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. So we're going to seal this whole thing with Mod Podge before we move on for a final little detail. Oh, yeah. I'm also going to Mod Podge the back of the sign because we are going to cover that. You can just use hot glue if you want, but I've been enjoying this. So I put the back side where all the fall, image was, and good coat of Mod Podge, let it dry, cut out some craft paper. You could use some scrapbook paper, whatever you want, and ironed that on just so that it looks finished. I have these itty bitty tiny white wood stars in my stash. I'm painting them with a little bit of white paint and using some tweezers. And my friend Kendra from Late Night Creations, she recently did something where she dipped, I think it was actually these wood stars, in glue and stuck them on. And I was like, that is a great way to get glue on such a tiny item. And then once that dried, I'm once again going in with a chippy brush and some antique wax just across the whole thing. I went a little bit heavier on the edge, but I did go across all of it just for that rustic look. If you want this sign to hang, just go ahead and glue or attach with a staple gun or something, as long as they're not big staples, some string to the back, some twine to the back to make it hang, but this is just a leaner sign for me. I was pleased with how it came out. Let me know what you think. All right, well, that is going to do it for today's video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. That is a very simple way to help me out. It helps candles a lot more than perhaps you realize, or maybe you do realize. If you're new here and you enjoy budget-friendly DIYs, please consider subscribing to my channel, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.